All right, Mike, it's your topic, so your introduction.
Okay, so welcome to the 52nd.
Mm-hmm.
All right, 52nd meeting of the Junto Club. The Junto Club was born out of Xu Zhang's brilliant idolatry of Benjamin Franklin. So Ben Franklin back in the 1700s used to meet with his friends and talk about politics and philosophy and the news of the day in order to improve himself and those around him and better understand the world around him. So, in that same vein, we three PhDs in robotics, and I mean, technically there's one, but that's all right. Um, uh,
Three minus
shoot
one.
that same thing. That's right. So, yeah. So, today's main topic is talking about happiness and learning about happiness, but Shu likes to open up with a quote and mini topics, so I'll turn it over to Shu.
Okay, I think
Actually,
I think this was yeah. Go ahead.
yeah. Actually, I dropped this quote in
Mm.
because
Mm-hmm.
I liked it. So this will be a chance to ask Shu what he thinks about a quote
Oh,
Okay.
instead
damn.
of the other way
Okay.
around. So the quote is, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Mm.
And I did look up the origin and it was contested. People do not know.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I heard this one previously. I think somewhere too. Yeah. May you want to go first? May you want to go first, or you want me to go? I can go first.
Yeah, you don't get an opportunity to go first, so you go first.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I mean, he definitely, it's to me, it's like, and it's perfectly sense as like stronger together, right? Yeah, I mean, Chinese philosophy and also, talk about like, one chopstick is very easy to break, right? If you have multiple chopsticks together, it's hard to break it. That's one of the things I learned growing up. And also when I'm very focused on like reading a lot of topics on like teamwork and stuff like that. So I definitely understand the strength of a team, right? And always, want to um especially we know when you hire people or work with other people, you want someone who's like better than you in a way. That way you can learn from them and then be better too. And then I guess especially startups too nowadays, like it's always do the teams are works like breaks. If you like a lot startups fail because our teams are not swimming in the same direction, like rowing in the same direction. So if you opposite direction, and then you're gonna cause actually the company to fail. So but yeah, but then there's a few caveats, of course. I think nowadays as technology is getting better, a lot of times you can kind of do things alone yourself, but I think there's still some teamwork there where you maybe get outside help from someone else, right? So yeah, I like it.
All right, Mike.
Yeah.
Sure. So, I guess just to take the first part, so if you want to go fast, go alone. So, I mean, obviously, if you're alone or, working on something, you sort of make the decisions. Like there is no sort of overhead on discussing decisions or anything like that. So it's like you're able to probably move forward, quote unquote, faster. But I guess as she was talking about, like any individual is going to have like shortcomings or things that they might need help with, or things that they aren't good at or inefficient at. So it helps to have the team. And I guess the second part, like if you want to go far, do it together or whatever the second part of the quote was. But like what occurred to me is like what we like when I studied microeconomics and like the idea of specialization and like how like the gross amount of like product created, like if you had like two different types of products could be like infinitely more with or like a decent bit more with cooperation, um than like even if one individual is clearly superior or like I mean I say individual because in the simple example they gave, it was individuals, but like, you know, I guess in the example of like a country producing certain goods, like even if that country can produce more of every good than the other country, like if that other country specializes,
Specialization, yeah.
yeah, and allows the larger country to specialize more in the other goods, then like the net product for that bigger country can be more, and similarly for the smaller country. So it's like as much as any individual can, you know, like if they're really, really good, they might be able to get far on their own. They're not going to go as far as with even like someone who can help a little. So,
Yeah. What's your thoughts, Matt?
I agree with everything y'all said. Obviously, cooperation, teamwork, it's very important. You can't do anything of substance, or there's almost nothing substantial you can do on your own. But what I like about the quote is I feel like it's not, and Mike touched on this a little bit, but I feel it's not just like one-sided, like, you got to cooperate. It's kind of like the trade-off, right? Because there
Mhm.
is a benefit to doing stuff alone as well. And it makes me wonder, like in certain team, like you imagine a situation where you have a project and you got different team members and you're trying to allocate people over. In one sense, you're like, well, you're on a team, you're cooperating. But as you subdivide tasks, you can distribute those differently, right? Like you can let someone, quote unquote, own something and sort of work on that independently. And I mean, you
Mhm.
can do stuff depending on the job and the work where you just say like, hey, you can just go do this for like a few weeks. And like, you don't lose all the overhead of like meetings about agreeing on like a plan or, decisions and stuff. And there's limitations to having one person do it. Um, especially for things that you want to be like very well developed or, have more than one person looking at it to think about potential issues. But if you just need something fast, like you can't just let one person just go off and do it, right? And just hack something out. And sometimes that's what you need, right? You just need that fast first prototype or MVP or whatever of your thing to work from there. So,
Mhm.
I think it's interesting. I thought it was interesting about, being how you could be a little more I don't know, aware about how you distribute work based on what you need, right? Like, do you need something
Yeah.
fast? Do you need something good? It
no,
No, I
reminds me
like.
of another here. I'll finish up and then I'll
Yeah.
let you go. It reminds me of another saying. This is what can one programmer can take a month to do, two programmers can do in only 2 months.
Mhm. Exactly. Actually, that's something I was kind of going to mention as well. Because actually, I like this one because actually, at the beginning of first glance, I thought, oh, this is common sense, common saying. Then as I look deeper, like as you guys talk about it, I feel like most people, I think, same thing to me happened to me. I just focus on the second part. I'm not really like I just kind of almost like as I was talking at the beginning, I just kind of totally ignore the first part. Like actually, that's advantage of going alone. Like you go fast. And then that remind me of like Jeff Bezos. He's a print philosophy too, like, as a teamwork. Because a lot of times they say teamwork actually, you want to over communicate, you want to communicate, with the team members, communicate as much as possible. He's saying actually, communication is bad, right? Communication is science, and there's too much coordination overhead, right? So the reason is, so if you have just that means you're wasting time doing the actual work, right? So if you have one person that is dedicated to, like you just say, that one programmer dedicated to do one thing, right? You don't have no back and forth. One person just solve that problem, like own that problem himself, and then he just do everything, like own it, and then he can just finish it faster, a lot faster. And then so so that's one thing he tried to minimize. Like, okay, communication actually is sign that something is not working quite good. That means that you might not be a high performance thing or something like that. And which is kind of a little bit counterintuitive to what I was, used to. I was, oh, maybe communication is a good, that means you're sharing information, but could be a sign of that your king is going to be slower. And then he's famous like two pizza king, right? Like, before meeting, right? If too many people, if you cannot like feed the people with two pizza in your meeting, that means you have too many people, right, in the meeting, right? You heard of that before, right?
I don't think I've heard the two pizza rule.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's good. Now you have too many. Yes, so if you cannot like feed all the participant with two pizzas, that means you will have too many people in the meeting. So which is not good. Yeah, you need small teams. His point is the smaller teams, the better, right?
Mm-mm.
So go. So yeah, another point of view says like, it's probably a trade-off in between somewhere, right? So
Yeah.
uh,
As with almost everything in life, there's a balance to achieve, right? So,
mhm.
all right, all right. That was good. That was good. I'm glad Shu got a chance to be blindsided by a quote for once.
Yes.
Okay, so now we'll go on to the mini topics. Let's see. Humanoid robot maker gets funding from OpenAI. Was that you, Shu?
Yes. Have you not heard of this?
Mm,
I heard about it, but I didn't dig into it. So,
Okay. Well,
there is this the company that's saying they're gonna make a general purpose robot
yep.
like
So,
fast?
yep, Figure AI, basically. The company's called Figure AI, and basically, it just recently received about six something, over 600 million funding from like basically round from like Jeff Bezos, Nvidia, OpenAI, on all the interesting Intel too. So that's a lot of money. So yeah, I guess what's your thoughts on that, right? The goal is to create a general purpose like humanoid robot. So
Uh,
since you guys have actual PhD in robotics, so let's put on your
well, I'm CS, just to be
PhD
clear.
hat and
Just to be
then
clear.
put your expertise on this, and put this topic. I don't know, address this issue once for all.
Um, I mean, so like when they say general purpose, like I'm always sort of skeptical. Like I'm a little bit like, what's the purpose of general Like, are they talking about like just making robots that are like operate in the human world? Like, because I mean, yes, like
Mm-hmm.
if we ever have a robot that does, like, it will need to navigate houses that like. I mean, maybe a human form would be, beneficial for that
Yeah, so
because
now the general purpose means you do basically everything that human can do. That's the goal,
so
objective.
they literally want to make like a replica people
Yeah,
or
general purpose is so adaptable, right? So you can do anything, right? You can create one thing, but it can
Mhm.
do multiple things, like whatever you want it to do, right?
Sure.
I mean, I guess more context like specialized. Most of robotics right now is specialized, right? Now you have a autonomous like forklift, right? Basically, just like in the form of forklift, we will lift stuff for you, right? And
Hmm.
then most robot like trash like Roomba is a very good example, right? It just only do one thing, specialized. It's just sweeping floors for you. So those are very specialized. So those are the big. That's the specialized and versus general purpose, right?
Right, right, right. I just didn't know because I mean, I guess I could see general purpose being like, oh, this robot does. This robot's helps do dishes. Like this robot does basically like manual labor around the home or something
Yeah,
like that
anything that
versus
human doesn't want to do.
yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
but I guess,
Could be
obviously
that when
that's
you can
missing.
do anything, right? You can do warehouse, you can warehouse, you can do picking a lot of heavy pallets for humans. Like human
Mhm.
doesn't want to go inside dangerous situations where like mining or something like that, cleaning, sewers, stuff like that.
all
Yeah,
right. I'm gonna jump in as the only official robotics PhD on this
that's
call.
right. That's right.
Um, so I think I think you brought up something interesting, Shu. So like warehouse robotics, you know a little bit about those.
Yeah.
Um, for autonomous forklifts are still not like a solved commercial problem. It's still something people are like working on like the applied research and engineering to get them to be reliable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are a much more constrained problem case than
Yep.
most general robotics tasks and a much more constrained like platform, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you have pallets, the things are on pallets, and you have a forklift which only has a few degrees of freedom, right? Compared to a humanoid robot. So my thought is, I mean, obviously, long term, we're going to have general humanoid robotics, general purpose humanoid robotics. I don't think anyone's disagreeing that will eventually happen, but is that going to happen in the next few years? I don't think so. Um, I think, I mean, we are getting better, but there's still like perception and manipulation is still like difficult, not reliable. And it's not just warehouse, right? Like the latest stuff I've seen from like Google and Amazon doing like pick and place, like type things, which again is like sort of like a constrained subset of this sort of general humanoid robot problem,
Hmm.
is they're better, but they're still not like generally nearly as good as a human just at that task. And that's with like a fixed robot on a table, right? Not even considering like it's got a body, it has to balance and stuff. Um, I did see something interesting where they incorporated basically like a chat GPT large language model sort of with this. Now it doesn't control the robot, it doesn't solve the perception problem, but what it does do is sort of give some level of like human context and knowledge. Like it can allow it, to take voice commands and sort of understand what those means. And they had a simple demo where they're like, put something down, where someone says, place this between these two objects, right? And they're able to like combine that large language model knowledge with, some image recognition, right? So things like the camera labeled some objects in space, and then it used, the LLM could figure out, okay, here's between the things and things like that.
Hmm.
So those are an interesting, I think those are like another piece that can help get us to this generalized humanoid robot because it can provide some of the context. But obviously, LLMs don't solve the like underlying challenges that we still, you know, have progress on, but not finished with, right?
Yeah,
So,
LLM is for language, right? Language model is to do actual useful tasks. The data is very different from the language data, right? The text data, and then the learning is more like text learning. Like how do you sequence on the steps of a test together? How do you collect the data? How do you learn that in the two, right? And of
mhm.
course, most people just use reinforced learning, deep learning, which is pretty much what LLM is used to, right? Just different architecture, I guess. So yeah, so I guess I want to go like get back out a little bit. Like, what do you think about the general the approach of creating like specialized versus general purpose? Like for a lot, the two camps, right? Of course, the biggest camp right now is to just create specialized functional to do a single job, right? Because general purpose is going to take a long time, decades, basically. Even the AI of like figure like CEO, he's saying that this is not going to be done in the next 10 years. It's not going to be done in a decades long journey,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
So 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 I guess what's I guess the philosophy of creating general purpose was specialized. What do you think? I guess what do you
I
think of
think,
those two camps?
yeah, I think if you can't make a specialized robot work in real world, you're way too far away from making a generalized robot work in real world. So there's almost no benefit towards pursuing general stuff right now.
Mm,
I don't know if I agree with that. Purely just because I guess like if we think about what makes humans special, like I mean like if we deconstruct our brain, like I mean we know there's like a visual cortex. I mean there's sort of a motor cortex and like then there's certain areas of the brain that like where those connections sort of meet.
mm-hmm,
And so I guess that, like, I mean, granted, like, there's a lot we don't understand, but I guess if we sort of think about algorithms as like brain cortexes, like, is there something to be said for so with the large language models and ChatGPT, like we've seen I guess a big push, and I feel like a lot of companies are sort of trying to do like multimodal type learning and type sort of generation. Like, I guess that's moving in like I guess that isn't necessarily sort of general purpose, but like I guess it's along a spectrum, right? Like, because
yep,
even like Roomba has like, you know, okay, it has to be able to navigate and clean, and those like, I mean, but we would say that's more specialized. But I guess as we move into like the multimodal space, we get at least a little bit more general. So, I guess. I agree with you. Like at companies, it's like we're driving toward just creating a robot that's identical to a person. That's like a bridge too far. But I guess if this company is more like we're using the human form and slowly building up like how generally like it can behave like that, like basically it can walk like a person in, a human environment, and it can pick up certain things without breaking them and dust them off
yeah.
or whatever. Like I mean, I guess moving in the direction of more general agents is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
So,
So there's a couple of companies actually, like Agility Robotics recently have been, Amazon actually been using it, Agility Robotics, like the humanoid inside the warehouse doing actual real works for the warehouse. So
hmm.
I think Agility Robotics is the first company. I think I think they have been to the, I think the professor that created it, the founder had came to spoke in Georgia Tech before, and then, so anyway, you guys probably familiar with it, Agility Robotics, and so they already deploy our robots in the actual doing work. And the Figure AI actually just signed something with, I think maybe agreement contract with BMW. Actually, BMW gonna try start using it in the warehouse. I'm not sure how they could do that, but I think what they're gonna do, maybe just gonna have someone actually. I'm not sure the AI is there yet in Figure. So I think probably they're gonna do a lot of, at least they're gonna do a lot of like share autonomy kind of approach. Basically just a human, a operating human robot. And when you actually, Mike, when you talk about like human brain, that made me think about another company called Century AI. It's a Canadian company. They actually try to create a general purpose but human-like robot based intelligence. So what they do, their approach is taking a cognitive architecture approach, right? So the AI going to be, just derived, architecture going to be derived on a cognitive science. So now is there, because their goal is try to create human-like, so robots. Um, Intelligence basically, right? So they're gonna have like human like wear like on a what do you call it? The suit that can like control the robot in the back end, right? So terror operation basically. So that way you
Hmm.
can collect the data, learn from it too, right? Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's
Anyway,
interesting.
I guess another last point is I would say, now you say, of course, it's gonna be a 20-year journey to get there, right? Humanoid robots. We all agree, like it's gonna happen sometime in the future, just not right now. But however, some company need to start sometime, which is right now, right? And like in the Tesla, Optimus, right? Optimus robots. So I guess one thing I don't quite understand is that, I guess they always the labor shortage. That's the big point. Like if you have some robot like that, it basically the market is almost like infinite, right? You basically replace humans in a way. Uh, I'm not so sure about that, but I guess they are smart, so I tend to defer to their business judgments. Uh, but another thing I'll say, in terms of robotics, right? I mean, working in technology, I feel like this is just tackle this problem is a good mission. Like or we know it might fail, right? So we know startup fail anyway, right? If you're gonna start a startup, you might as well do something that's super hard, right? That way you actually yeah, it's a mixture. Yeah, I know, Matt is shaking your head, but I would say, I would say in term of like working something that's meaningful, I guess a lot of people, and it's perfect to me. I would say, okay, if I'm gonna work on something, even other robotic company, this is you're gonna like do the same amount of work. You're gonna work hard anyway, right? If you're gonna work hard, you might as well work on something that's super hard, and kind of excites you in a way. And then even if it fails, you're probably gonna achieve something along the way anyway. So, at least that's my final point of like doing something like this, right? It's more like mission driven. Well, it's like instead of just like, oh, if you create that, the money is gonna be there. But instead of just go for money and then just create something that's specialized, that is, yeah. I mean, just different perspective, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
No,
think the benefit of like being so audacious, have an audacious goal to go for it, right?
so and I'm gonna give an opinion strongly, but I could be wrong about this, but
Hmm.
do you know what the first robot was? One of the Greeks, I don't remember who it was, maybe Archimedes or someone. They set up this thing with like
Yeah.
wheels and little sticks and pulleys and a weight. So like as a weight fell down, it pulled ropes that drove two wheels, and by like
Uh-huh.
winding them around pegs differently, it could like drive forward for a little bit, and
Uh-huh.
then it would like the rope would slip, and then it would switch which direction the wheel was turning, so then it would turn. So this was like a programmable cart that
car.
could move
Yeah.
itself for a little bit. This is obviously super primitive. It couldn't do actually anything useful, right? It just sort of could move a little bit in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
The point I bring this up is you said something that like, well, you have to like, yeah, we all agree it's going to happen, but you have to, start work on it, to get there. It's not necessarily true. A similar analogy, there's a point when the fundamental technology isn't good enough that like pursuing it doesn't really get you anything, and you sort of have to wait on stuff like something else, right, to like be discovered to get there. There's a similar analogy that like it doesn't matter. You can keep climbing higher and higher trees, but you'll never like get to the moon doing that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't think humanoid robots are that far away. Like I do think companies can make progress pursuing them, but I wonder if they would make faster progress narrowing their scope to sort of pieces of the puzzle and actually trying to get those done without as many, confounding issues. Because like the agility robots you talked about, I saw a video on those. They're humanoid robots, like bringing baskets around. It looks really cool. You're like, wow. But they're just like the video I saw at least was them walking around on like a flat warehouse floor.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, well, do they need to be a humanoid form? Like, why not have something forklift-ish? Maybe it's not a forklift. Maybe it's a wheeled vehicle with the same arms and head for cameras, right? But it's just got a wheeled base, right? So you just throw away some of the extra complexity about like having to like counterbalance its own weight when it picks something up, right? I mean, that is a problem people will eventually have to solve, but they already still have a bunch of other really hard problems to work on. With narrowing their scope, let them solve those faster and sort of, take those things at one step at a time. I don't know. I could be wrong. I'm not convinced that just going straight for general robots right now is actually the efficient way to get there.
Yeah,
I mean,
but I
but
think I think that's kind of like what agility doing, right? Agility creating this robot already, like just kind of humanoid form, but you just do very specialized task to almost like a small step to slowly maybe getting more better with other tasks, right?
That's true.
Mm.
If it's not really to do that job well, but more just
Mm-hmm.
sort of like a test application of their platform, maybe you say
Mm-hmm.
that's, even if it's not commercially viable, maybe it's good enough to, progress their purposes.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
Mm-hmm. All right. Matt, might you have final something to say?
well, no, I mean, I guess I was just thinking like, I mean, we're talking about general as like humanoid form, but I mean, a general robot doesn't necessarily need to be a human form, right? I mean, I guess
Mm-hmm.
if it's
Yep.
truly, truly general, but I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like you could have, I guess, as Matt talked about, sort of that wheeled base where you remove the complexity of like, balance and things like that, but the robot is doing more, like it's interacting with employees, it's, keeping inventory, like, so. Yeah.
So yeah, so I have been listening to Sanctuary AI's podcast for a bit, and then so yeah, I mean, this is another whole can of worms, actually, big topic, like versus, like, yes, general, that's another approach, right? General purpose, yes, okay. Inside general purpose, there's a couple approach too, right? Two
Mhm.
approaches. One is create human-like. The other one just create something that is like do everything, right? That means like you can create a octopus robots, right? Or something with like 6 legs and 7 legs, right? So it doesn't have to be human form. And then the other one, this is what Sanctuary AI is taking, is create human-like humanoids. And that means I know based on their conversation, I understand actually that's kind of create a few benefits for them. Is one is decision design choice. It actually make them um, constrain the design decisions very efficiently. So for example, if you like, do you need to do does the robot need 6 fingers? Your answer will be no, because we want to create human-like robot. So you have 5 fingers, right? And then does it need like I don't know, lidar on the arms or something, or legs, right? No, because human use visions, and then just so it's kind of constrain their problem and then making them actually just go for maybe engineering wise decision faster, right? Instead of like, oh, let's put something in the legs or something like that. And that's their, I mean, their philosophy. So they go in that direction. I mean, I don't think there's no right or wrong direction. If, as long as getting things done is fine. And that's why they also take the cognitive architecture approach, right? So even I do see a few benefits out there, right? Because that one, if you create human-like robot, that means it can behave like human. It can almost like it can react, can act like human almost in a way, like walk like human, right? So so that way more natural interaction in the future with like human like actually working with humans in a way. So anyway, that's another probably another big topic for debate in the future. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway. All right. All
We
right,
have a
next.
different topic supposed to be our main topic. So.
Yeah. So next one, let's go into just touch on very quickly. I want to ask Matt about since you're on our uh resident expert in Reddit. So I think Reddit IPO, what's your thoughts?
I my thoughts are they message use they're messaging all the users and saying like, do you want to buy or like get in on this, user an opportunity for users to get in on the IPO? And I'm like, no, I do not.
Oh, you
I
got a
don't.
message? I never got a
Yeah.
message. I
Oh,
want
do
to
you have
get
an
in actually.
account?
I do have an account.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe you just need I don't know.
I thought, at least in the news I heard is that they actually go for the super users.
Oh, am
So
I a super
apparently,
user?
You're
apparently you
apparently
are,
a super user.
apparently you are one, man. So,
I
so
do have an old account, so
Yeah.
yeah, because I know you use it a lot. So it's actually, yeah,
Yeah, I literally just used it for
yeah,
Georgia Tech, like getting participants and
me
stuff.
too. So I
So,
never got an
yeah,
email. So
yeah.
you should actually,
uh,
yeah, okay.
I mean, on one hand, it's one of those things where like it's mostly a text website, although they do host their own videos and images now. It's a website where people look at specific things that interest them, so it seems like an advertiser's sort of like dream, right? Like
Mhm.
you can hit like be like, oh, advertise on these subreddits that are like directly related to my stuff or have like this share the same audience. But at the same time, I mean, it's one of those, standard tech company, not profitable. So I don't know. I wouldn't want
Mm.
I wouldn't want to gamble on it. I
Okay.
feel like it could be profitable,
But you like using
but
it. That's what I want to know. You
yeah,
like
yeah.
using it.
It's
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 useful to
still
you.
pretty good. It's still a pretty good website.
How many times do you go on it every day?
Oh,
Oh.
probably too many, a few. It's definitely my, instead of like TikTok or something, if I'm just like bored, I'll just, like flip to it and look through stuff. So,
Oh, okay. How do you like the ads on there? I'm conducting some research.
I don't generally mind them too much because they're not overly invasive as a user.
Okay.
Like YouTube's been way worse about like lately about like
Yeah.
ads where I'm like, do I need to get like ad blocker on can I get ad blocker on my like TV's YouTube app? Because it's like it's ridiculous. But
Mm.
Reddit's aren't too bad,
Okay.
which
All
maybe
right.
is why they're not making money, right? Because they need more aggressive ads. But
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Sounds good. All right then.
you're welcome.
Mike,
So,
do you have anything? If not, we
but
can. Yeah.
no, I mean, I don't really use Reddit, but I guess takeaway, we don't buy stock when it IPOs.
I'm just saying I don't like the stock.
Okay.
I'm not buying stock in it. I don't think
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's confidently going to go be bad, but I think like most, you know, I don't know, like a lot of this stuff, it's a gamble.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
But in
Maybe.
theory, like, shouldn't it hypothetically be like able to do Facebook-ish? Like it's got a lot of users, so why can't it make money like Facebook makes money? I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think as long they have because they have focused on the user experience. I know. I think monetizing is hard. Maybe so I think eventually they're gonna get there. But as long they got their product right, their users making their user happy, you know, keep you like visiting it several times a day, then it's a good product. So
That's true.
I think money will take care of itself in the future.
I
Well,
mean,
here I'll get. Oh, sorry, you go, Mike.
I was just gonna say, I feel like isn't that every like I feel like a lot of companies right now are having trouble monetizing. Like Uber just like essentially was just making money, and I feel like they have a very clear like of all these companies, they have a very clear way to make money. It's like people are
Hmm.
paying for rides, people are paying for food, and it's
Hmm.
like, yeah, they need to pay the drivers and stuff, but it's like I feel like that has a more clear path to profitability to me anyway than something like a Reddit or a Facebook or, social media
Hmm.
stuff. So I don't know that any of those companies are like flush with cash right now.
It's kind of incredible. I would love to see how Uber doesn't make money, given that, they obviously pay Uber drivers less than they get paid for every ride. It's
Hmm.
like you're running an app. Yeah, that takes some like servers and stuff, but like they have to have a lot of revenue. What are they doing with it?
I, I don't know, but wasn't it just this past year that they
Well,
said they made money for the first time?
Probably. I'm
yeah.
not doubting that. It's just I don't understand it. So actually, well, I'll connect the dots here because I know a little bit more about Reddit on this perspective because like it's like come up that they're like not really profitable.
Hmm.
Like a year or so ago, they laid off like 5 or 10% of their workforce, right? But here's the thing. They had before that, they had almost tripled their workforce from like a few years prior. So if you go back like 3, maybe 4 years, Reddit's not that different. It's still like the same like very big. It was already like a really big website. Um, Not much has changed, and it's kind of like, what did they almost triple their workforce to do? I don't understand. As someone who's using Reddit, there were a few things. They started like I think it was called R-Span, basically like a streaming feature where people could stream on Reddit. That went for a few months. It died. They gave you these weird avatar profile things that no one
Hmm.
cares about, and then they made an NFT version of them that no one still cares about. Um, so from my perspective, it's like, well, you got like you dramatically increased the number of people you're paying um, for an already established like website and app that's like already built, already popular. And the visible features that they tried are almost all like worthless or even in some cases just cut after a little
Hmm.
bit. So it's like, are you just like blowing? Like, is it just you feel the need to spend money on shit? Because my thought was like, you probably would be profitable if you just had the original workforce, you know, not an extra thousand, employees on the payroll. But
No, that's fair. I mean,
just,
I think a lot because it's similar with like Facebook and like the metaverse sort of not working. Like I feel like all these companies are looking for like what can we do to like that's in the same vein of what we already do, but can like let us expand. And it's like in some cases, I because even Netflix, like it's like Netflix, like you have people paying you every month, and it's a massive number of people, but like they're spending so much money on creating like original content to try to like keep the people or like get new people. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I guess it's as we talked about earlier, the balance. Like you need to find the balance of like, all right, we do enough to like keep revenue high, but like we keep our costs reasonable as opposed to just like we're gonna like just keep upping costs like in an attempt to get even more like to make the profit margin bigger.
yeah. I think Netflix is at least I'm more sympathetic towards because like, along with having to stream content, so that's like pricier servers, all their content costs money, right? They either have to like pay royalties or like, yeah, make their own shows and stuff. So that's like not cheap, but I don't know. I wonder sometimes if these companies get stuck in the startup mentality where it's like the only thing we can do is like expand and like you
Mhm.
couldn't just be like, hey, we have our niche. Like this is what we're good at. We're popular. Like let's like, lean out and just like, you know, be, an effective, profitable company at this scale with this popularity. It seems like they're always stuck in that, yeah,
Hmm.
gotta expand to the new next market, do the next thing.
All right.
Hmm. All right.
I don't know.
Hot tech.
Hot take.
Okay.
I don't run a company, so I could be totally wrong. Maybe they know what they're doing, but
Not yet. Not yet.
Mhm.
All right.
gonna,
Yeah.
okay.
Should we get on Mike's main topic? Happiness?
Yes.
All right.
Sure. Okay. Okay, so I'll preface this by saying so like my mom was taking a course
Yeah.
on like happiness in aging or something to that effect.
Mm. Okay.
So there's a podcast that I was referred to that I listened to about the first 100 episodes of. I still have a lot of catching up to do, but
Oh, okay.
the podcast is by Dr. Robert Puff, who's a clinical psychologist based in Southern California.
Mm-hmm.
So,
What's the name
uh,
of the podcast?
the Happiness Podcast.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah, he literally like his area, like he's a clinical psychologist who's like literally like his area of expertise is studying happiness.
Okay.
I wanted to make this as interactive as possible. So I wanted to start by asking you both, what is your definition of happiness?
Hmm. I let Matt go first
Oh,
while I think about it.
uh, that's hard. Okay, so I'll give the super simple one and then I'll expand it. I mean, I mean, happiness is, I mean, it's an emotion primarily, right? Like you feel happy, um, so that's just simplifying it down to the basic part, right? Like you want to feel happy. What leads you to feeling happy is kind of like the next question. I mean, I feel like that kind of gets at like a hierarchy of needs sort of situation where like, you need your basic needs met. If you're hungry, if you're thirsty, if you're worried about your safety or your future, you're not going to be very happy. But then you got to do more than that, really, because if you didn't have those needs met and you get them met, you're going to be happy for a little while, but it won't be that long before you sort of like, I want more. So like to kind of be consistently happy, you sort of have to have, you know, good relationships and feel like you're doing something meaningful with your life and all those sort of more complex hierarchy and needs. That's my best attempt.
All right.
Hmm.
Anything to add on that shoe?
No, no, I was distracted by my own thinking. So wasn't.
You're not gonna say your kid's shoe? Wow.
No, I think happiness is a good is it's hard to define it. Might be it's one of those meaning of life questions like what's it's like almost like really depends on what you made it is, and maybe it's I'm not sure happiness is happy is an emotion, but happiness is almost like it's just state that you will try to achieve, right? So you can. I'm not sure if that's a good definition either, because that way is happiness is not all, because being happy is not it's not gonna be you're not gonna be happy all the time, right? So if you wanted to cheat that, it's almost like a failure. It's due to failure, right? So maybe it's a some kind of steady state, being peaceful, but also um to me, I think maybe it's up to knowing that being content, almost like content is always a good way to think about happiness, and then not to no, knowing enough is enough, I guess, right?
Mhm.
Not being unsatisfied, which is hard to do. So that's why we always being unhappy, right? It's human nature. You want more or more something. Once you achieve something, you still want more. And so yeah, um, yeah. Maybe a better way of thinking about it is how what happiness is not, which I'm not sure. Like happiness is not like excitement, being happy all the time, right? And so yeah,
Mhm. Okay. No,
that's why I come in. Yeah.
well, no, you both, I think, touched on, so literally I have follow-up questions, and I think you both touched on these slightly, but I'll just pose them as a means of like, I guess, just making it explicit sort of where I was thinking. So, like, I guess Shu mentioned, like, thinking about happiness in terms of like, what is happiness not? So I have a follow-up question. Is there something that limits your happiness or would prevent you from being happy? And I guess Matt
Hmm.
also touched on
Yeah.
this with certain needs not being met. But is there Is there anything else you were thinking about or would think about that if asked that question?
Say it again. Can you repeat the question?
Sure. So, is there something that limits your happiness or prevents happiness?
Oh yeah, I think a lot of needs are very like couple of things, right? Is how you think about things, and a lot of things come from your internal thinking, interpretation of things. And then I think one thing that I heard people is that you keeping a internal scorecard or an external scorecard, right? If you care about what other people thinks, like it's very really hard to be happy because everything you do is you need validation from other people.
Hmm.
And I think yeah. So what constraint really prevents you from me being happy is probably is because my internal working of things, like how I interpret things, and I always like thinking about what you don't have, right? That is definitely like what you don't have is always is gonna give you prevent you from being happy, right? Like oh, I want to uh you know make I want to be rich, right? But it's a then if you don't have that, like and then you keep working on it, and then you are keep being unsatisfied, right? Even
Hmm.
though you're making enough already, right? And
Mhm.
then also like success is like your definition of success, right? That also prevent you from being happy, right?
Hmm.
Whatever that is, could be making money or could be power or something like that. Um, and then also comparison to other people, right? I think a lot of times external things that make you unhappy. And that's why I actually don't have Facebook, right? And that's
Hmm.
one reason I actually deleted Facebook a long time ago because when I go on there, I just feel oh, these very like beautiful pictures, lives that painted by other people, and that just made me depressed. So I just remove all those stuff, and then um yeah, negativities in your life too, right? People like negative people in your life, those are big influence too. Um, so um, yeah, all this kind of stuff. Like yeah, I guess where I'm right now. But what about you, Matt? I'm not sure. Mike, do you have any follow-up questions on that one on what I say?
No, no, no. I think you're getting into a lot of the space that I wanted you to get into. So no,
Yeah,
that's good. Yes. I
to
mean,
me, I think
excellent.
it's almost like I need to work on myself, like internally, so I can control. I can like not preventing myself like being content and being knowing what's enough, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, like don't care about what people. Even though it's easy to say, oh, I don't give about don't care about what other people thinks, but it's really hard to do.
Sure.
You
Sure.
still do something like that, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Hmm.
So do you have any thoughts you'd like to add, Matt, about limiting happiness or preventing
Yeah.
happiness?
I think Shu's kind of idea of like contentness is important because like, you can get more stuff, but there's a limit, right? You can't always get more stuff. So at some point you got to be able to, be satisfied with what you have. I wonder, so comparing with others is obviously, that's often brought up as something that uh, you know, can sap happiness away. I wonder, I don't know if it counts as comparing with yourself, but regret is something that can really, bring you down. I
Hmm.
feel like you can be in the exact same situation. Like you're in the same personal situation, but if you had an opportunity that you missed, you might be regretful and like not happy. When if you never had that opportunity at all, like you might not care at all and you could be content.
Hmm.
So sometimes it's not even just like external with other people, but maybe it's like, with possibilities and what ifs of like what you could have done, right? That can also sort of sap away happiness. So sort of like accepting, and this is, I guess, a very general concept, but like accepting things, as they are. Um, whether, that's people doing things to you or you messing up in the past or things like that.
Hmm. Yep. No, so I mean basically yes to all of this. I'll say based on my listening of this podcast and some of the reading I've done outside, I would say he certainly like I think you're both centering around it. He seems to equate and I won't say equate, like or equate might be too strong a word, even though I'm going to use it. That's should what I say. But like very central to his like sort of thesis on happiness is essentially equivalent to like mindfulness.
Mm,
So like so being like so basically the idea being he argues that any like so what sucks happiness is sort of the problems you describe. There's you may have lost someone you care about, you may have made a mistake you have trouble forgiving yourself for, you may be in a situation like in a sort of more general situation that you don't really like, like so I mean he literally uses the like the example of like a person who's in prison. Like he's like a person in a like most people who are you think of being locked up in prison, like the person's going to be miserable, their life is controlled. But he argues that he has worked with prisoners who are perfectly happy. Like, basically they're able to find like be mindful, be present in the moment. And in the moment, like, in the moment, whether it be working in the yard or just chilling in the cell, there's like nothing actively wrong. Like they're not in pain, they're not suffering. They're like, and they're able to just sort of be present. And being present is like essentially being present. There's nothing wrong, and you have that like that state, and like I think Shu referred to it as contentment. But I guess you could call it sort of contentment or happiness, because if you're truly present and not, comparing yourself, you're not thinking I could do better at this, you're not regretting decisions made. Like there's nothing wrong, and that is how he defines happy. So I mean it's very much just I mean happiness is like a nebulous thing, but like being immersed in the moment is like he essentially refers to it
mm.
as like our most pure state is like being immersed in a moment. Um so one of the things that this got me thinking about actually was sort of like so I mean and I guess another question is like that I was thinking about is like what is the sort of like I guess if I asked you to imagine like your happiness moment, or like like the happiest person, or like the happiest you've ever seen someone or something, like what would you envision?
Say it again.
So if I were to ask you to envision like your happiest moment, or like the happiest person you've ever seen, I mean, like, I mean, I guess like if I asked you to envision like just the prototypical like view on expression of happiness, how would you, or what do you think of?
What might come to mind first for me is like a situation where like someone like worked like really hard and like
Hmm.
achieved something, like a classic like a competition, right? You won the first place in the world at whatever. And this is what you've been working hard for like years. And and that is like if I'm thinking of someone who looks like as happy as they can ever be, right? Because that like it's not just like a temporary like I mean like you win the lottery, you're happy, right? But like if you've worked for a really long time, there's like this, I guess, sense of like meaning and
Hmm.
value behind it. And ironically, I've heard that when people do that, they're super happy, and then it doesn't take that long before they actually become kind of unhappy because they're like, that's like the peak of their life, right? And then and then it's kind of like, well, now what?
Mm.
I've heard
Hmm.
this, but anyway, that's what it comes to my mind is like the happiest.
Yeah. How about you, Shu?
Not yeah, I was thinking something like that too. But like someone like suffer through our journeys, like climb the Mount Everest, or yeah, and then the climb is super hard, the suffering, but in the end, they did it, right? And another thing I guess most common to our people, and it's my perception, is like maybe couldn't have falling in love, right? If you're falling with someone, right?
Mhm.
Maybe in the moment, the passion, right, during that period of time, is really happy, right? But then when you get married and that stuff, and the issues come out, right? So it's hard to fall in love, but it's very happiness almost can maybe similar. It's falling in love. It's easy to fall in love, but it's very hard to keep in love in a way. And so happiness is like maybe it's hard. Like, based on what you say earlier, is like you just say maybe it's easy to achieve that happiness moment, and then it's hard to keep being in that state all the time, right?
Hmm.
Um, and then, but actually, when you talk about, have you heard of the guy in the happiest? Do you know who's the happiest person in the world?
I don't know who's the
Okay,
happiest.
so as you were talking about, I was really into this kind of stuff a long time ago. So I was a meditation stuff. So basically, there's a Buddhist monk called Mathieu Ricard. I think he's a French. So the first name also like very much similar to Matthew, is but more like Matthew and like Theieu, and then
Hmm.
Ricard. Someone Ricardo, my Ricard, but I'm butcher his name. Basically, he's a French monk. So he is actually scientifically shown to be the happiest person in the world. So I think there's a brain research institute in like in Wisconsin or something. The guy he did a lot of research in the brain, like cognitive science, like neuroscience stuff. He
Hmm.
actually collaborate with who's that? Who's the most famous guy? I forgot now. What? I cannot believe. What's his name? Uh,
The most famous what?
yeah, Tibetan monk.
Oh, I have no
Dalai
idea.
Lama?
Yeah, that I know.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I cannot believe I blank on his name.
Yeah.
Sorry. So Dalai Lama actually sent all.
Apologize to the Dalai
Yeah,
Lama.
Uh,
yeah. He actually sent a lot. His like student, his monks actually to this uh with to university to study. Now, even Emory University too. They send them to university to study like neuroscience and stuff. And then
hmm.
they did a lot of like brain imaging of these monks, right? And to analyze like like what is the happiest uh the what do you call that uh like like where does happiness come from kind of thing, right? And it's kind of study happiness in a way with these monks like studying their brains. And
Hmm.
then I think the way they measure is something called gamma wave, or I think it's gamma wave. By doing these neural imaging they were able to measure these waves, right? And this material record, supposedly he has the strongest waves that they have ever measured. So that's why
Yeah.
he is like titled the happiest person in the world. And that's because like directly to you, he's very content because he did all the meditation and stuff. So he kind of trained his brain to be very happy.
Hmm.
Right.
No,
So
I mean that would make sense. Like the lower frequency waves are sort of what you usually see like during sleep and
oh
like when people are most at peace. So
hmm
that would sort of make sense. But
oh okay. Well, it's
yeah.
cool.
So yeah, no, that is interesting. I didn't know that. But I mean, I do think you're very like so. I guess circling back to like what's the happiest moment. So moments of achievement are certainly, I think can be celebrated and can bring happiness. But I guess the point you made subsequent to that, where it's like the achievement, like is the happiness, the state of happiness is short-lived in that case.
hmm
So I think one of the things that the like Dr. Puff in the podcast really wants to focus on is not necessarily those like fleeting moments of like the state of happiness, but sort of what makes for a happy person.
mm,
So like, and I think there is a distinction there because I think certainly, yes, I agree with you that there's like moments of happiness. So there's whether it's winning the lottery or whether it's, getting done with school, getting a bonus at your job, like those achievements like will bring short-lived state of happiness. But how are you able to stay there like once it's basically over? And I guess that's what circles back to this notion of like mindfulness. Like so basically being immersed in the moment, like and not reverting to compare like, oh, I hit the lottery, but that money won't last forever, or there are people with more money, or I'm undeserving. So one of the things so I guess there's sort of shutting out, like he gives tips for like basically like trying to shut out those
mm,
I guess like the dampeners of happiness. Like so if happiness, if we're defining happiness as a mindful state where you're present in the moment, then like basically there's many things in life that can sort of derail that. So
hmm
like we've talked about sort of the I guess the stories we sort of tell ourselves and sort of the difficult things that arise in life. So one of the things he pushes very hard is like humans sort of naturally have voices in their head that like basically will tell stories, and they may be telling stories that are true or are not true or whatever. I guess for example, like the comparison one. So like,
Hmm.
oh, like when I go to CrossFit, I'm like one of the worst people there, and I'm like other people are taking notice and I'm sort of less than, as opposed to just so that's one story, your brain can tell, as opposed to just uh like going through the workout and being immersed in the workout.
Hmm.
So it's like you're sort of actively separating yourself from the moment with the story you tell.
Hmm.
And the stories we tell are the ones that add sort of the negative and positive connotation, I guess. So it's like so the story, like, so there are some people who may say I'm going to CrossFit and it's great, I'm just getting a workout in.
Hmm.
There are other people who say I'm going to CrossFit and I'm one of the worst people there. So I like so it's the story that has the positive or negative connotation. I think Dr. Puff would contend that adding that positive or negative judgment to the act in the moment is not good either way. Like basically, if you're like adding sort of a positive or a negative spin to anything, you're sort of removing yourself from the moment. You're removing yourself from like just the act itself.
Hmm.
So, he would contend that basically who we are and like is who we are at any given time is simply the awareness at that time. So,
Yep.
yeah. So basically, like if you're adding connotation, good, bad, or otherwise, you're making yourself as separate from that awareness, which is ultimately going to lead you to do more judging. And like oftentimes, just because of the nature of our world, that judging is, that judging is ultimately going to hurt you and remove happiness.
Yeah, judging itself is not good. And that's very much Buddhist like view as well. Even in Tao Te Ching, uh, a few thousand years old book. I'm not sure, but yeah. And there's a something it says like good. If you see something is good, that means something else has to be bad, right? Something is
Hmm.
beautiful, something else is that means something's ugly. So you're gonna have having a tendency to compare. So so the fundamental thing you want to achieve is to maybe to be non-judgmental, like just not judge, like
Hmm.
see reality as it is, when the true state, like it is what it is. It's not beautiful or ugly. It's not good or bad. It is what it is. Like bad things happen to you, right?
Hmm.
Could be a good thing because it could prevent you. I think there's a story is uh a long time ago. So this old guy, he has a horse, and then the son is riding the horse and broke his leg, right?
Hmm.
And then this terrible thing happened to him, and then he's like, his neighbors, oh, this sorry, this is terrible, but then he's like, oh, it is what it is. It's not good or bad. And then I think a year later, a war broke. I mean, just a couple months later, and the war broke out, right? And they're drafting a lot of soldiers. His son did not get drafted because he was injured, right? His leg was broken a
Hmm.
while ago, so he was injured, so he cannot be drafted. So he survived the war because and then another person come to labor say, oh, your son did not get drafted. He was lucky. This is good. And he's like, oh, it is what it is. It's not good or bad because later on something else could happen to him. So anyway, so I'm not doing justice no story, but it's something. Just remind me of the story. Like it is what it is. Sometimes good things then happen to you, and then moment you think it's good, but something else it could have even if it's good at the moment, it could have ramification that is bad things now. Then the main thing is just judge don't judge is good or bad, right?
Hmm. No, I think that's yeah, I think that you actually did do well explaining it because it is very much just be non-judgmental when like when you observe a thought, sort of let it come and go.
Hmm.
Don't be critical of that thought, even if it's something that may cause you pain or whatever, and just let it go as much as possible.
Yeah, so I guess my
Yeah.
question now is
Mhm.
how do we do that? Did he recommend anything how we do that? Like, is again, it's really hard to say. It's easy to say, oh, let's not judge, but everybody judges. Like,
Sure.
how can we? What does he recommend any things that we can do to be less judgmental?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think one episode he sort of gets into sort of like impermanence of life and
Hmm.
basically
Impermanence, the fragrance of our everyday.
say that again.
Impermanence is the what do you call it? Impermanence is the fragrance of everyday life or something like that. There's a it's
Oh,
one of
okay.
good quotes from somewhere,
Impermanence is the fragrance of the everyday. Okay.
something like that.
I could see that. Yeah. I mean, I
Anyway,
guess
when we say about impermanent, just remind me on the quote.
yeah. So, so he, I guess, talks about how life is very much like, or one of the ways to get better at being so I guess there's three things he talks about. So when it comes to sort of forgiving yourself, not living with regret, not over it. So
Oh,
for,
sorry for interrupt. Let me
mhm,
extend the quote.
yeah.
It's not impermanence, the very fragrance of our days, by Rainer Maria Rilke, a poet. So it's one of
Mhm.
my favorite quotes, long time ago. So sorry,
No, that is
continue.
no, that's a good quote. So yes. So when it comes to not overthinking or sort of being mindful, he basically said so one thing that like I guess is helpful is engaging in metacognition. And specifically when it comes to thinking about how we behaved in the past or yeah, and I guess getting to Matt's point sort of about regret is like he argues like basically sort of a soft determinism like can like if we sort of engage in metacognition and recognize that we are basically a result of our conditioning and environment, that like if we behaved in ways we wish we hadn't in the past, that like
Hmm.
essentially it was a result of our conditioning and environment, and we are capable of growing and changing depending on our conditioning. So if we've changed our conditioning and regret that moment, then, we're able to sort of essentially forgive ourselves because we've made the change in conditioning and can move beyond it. So I think that metacognitive approach is one of the ways he um argues to stay mindful and not judgmental uh of sort of past things or if these thoughts come about, it's like, well, this is happening because of our conditioning. We've changed the conditioning, so that allows sort of negative thoughts about the past to move on, and it also allows for growth and staying present. So that is
Hmm.
one of the things he does bring up quite a bit.
Okay.
I would also say that he sorry, I'm just looking at my notes, but so he also says that basically happiness is available at um all times. So basically so like again, this is sort of a metacognitive approach. Like basically if you recognize like you're not happy, and that could be because you're stressed out, like your job is stressful, and you find that bleeding into your nights, and you find like I guess you find those intrusive thoughts coming in, like he advises like taking sort of regular assessment of like what is making you unhappy. So those the thoughts that are bleeding in, and what can you change to potentially like reduce that. So whether it's change jobs, whether it's I guess whether it's like a better separation of work and life. He contends that really a key thing to do is to like essentially go with life's flow. So if you're like so the example he gives in the podcast is basically like you want to be physically healthy, right? So you want to work out, but you despise going to the gym. But you really like nature and it makes you feel good to be in nature. So maybe you aren't a bodybuilder, but you can be healthy and in shape by going on hikes.
Hmm.
So I guess like when you have sort of intrusive thoughts or thoughts that or like aren't enjoying, like essentially if you're doing something where you're like this is good for me but I hate it, he says don't do it. Like don't do it. Find the thing that like speaks to you that can accomplish or accomplish something similar, but
Yeah.
like doesn't tax you in that same way. So that's one of the
Yeah.
way of essentially getting rid of the thoughts is finding like, finding something that might be parallel or, in the same vein, but that flows better with your life.
Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, the problem with that is hard to do in a moment. Like if you are unhappy, in a moment, you know, you actually do not want to do anything. You don't even want to go out. You might not even want to go outside. That's why it's hard to tell depressed people like, oh, why don't you just go outside and smell the flowers and stuff like that, which is they're depressed. They actually don't want to do that. They don't feel like doing it. They cannot get the energy to do that, even though they know that it's going to help them. They just don't feel like doing it. And sometimes like you are so down with your maybe comparison with your failures, you actually don't you just want to sit and just enjoy your I don't know your suffering or way that you actually don't want to do anything. And and yeah. Like I
Yeah.
said, the main thing is I think probably relate to your metacognition point,
Hmm.
where is actually to prevent those things from happening in the first place by designing your life, uh, like designing your life in a way that make exercise easier for you to happen to do, right? And so if you know you need to exercise, maybe create some systems, make it into a habit, right? So that's why recently I just create. I know I haven't been working out much. I like to go running outside, but actually sometimes you just don't have to find the time. So I just got a roller. Now I just put it instead of putting it in the garage. I know it's kind of hard for me to go in the garage every day.
Hmm.
I just gonna put it in the living room where I can see it every day. So now it make it easier for me. I can just hop on it whenever I feel like it, like 10 minutes, 5 minutes, even for 1 minute, right?
Hmm.
So just getting a habit in there, make it accessible, easy for you to just access it, right? So that's something that, well, I mean, I think another thing you say is exercise actually a good thing to make you feel, make yourself in not necessarily feel happy, but get into a good state, right? Which is that's why I always see exercise as a form of meditation anyway, to get into that mindful state,
Hmm.
right?
No, no, no. I agree with that. I mean, I think he would like. So I think you're right that in the case of sort of depressed people, it can be hard for them to do anything, and it can be hard for them to want to pursue happy. Like, I mean, that is a point he brings up. Is happiness is something to be pursued. Like, it's not something that just like is easy to happen in isolation. Like,
Well, is that what the Constitution, the pursuit of happiness,
that's what.
not
Yes, that's
not
right.
guarantee
Yes,
of happiness,
yes,
not
that's right.
not guarantee healthcare or free college degrees.
That's right. That's right. Yes. So,
Mm.
so I guess. So let's say, so sort of the three things. So if the thesis is happiness is about being mindful, like
Is that?
first,
Yeah, go
uh,
ahead. Sorry.
yeah, so the thesis is happiness is sort of an ability, like, so the state of happiness is when you're in sort of that mindful present state. And I guess a happy person is one who like, or someone who's regularly happy is a person who's going to be able to stay with a decent amount of frequency in that mindful state.
Mm-hmm.
So to go back, I guess, to the first point, like part of that is, not telling the stories. So like not telling stories or judging like aspects of your life. So
Mm-hmm.
just so because that will remove you from the moment. And then there's the there's sort of the second point, which I don't like, I guess going with the flow of life is how I termed it. So basically like
So first
finding
one. Mm-hmm.
yeah, so the first one is sort of like don't tell the stories and like,
Your
don't
interpretation.
judge, be
Okay. Mm-hmm.
neutral. And
Okay.
then the second one is sort of go with the flow of life. So,
Mm.
basically find things that sort of I guess feel good and, don't encourage you to be in the moment. And I think the third one is sort of very related to that, but it's sort of I mean, and I guess I'll just say, like, I should have added this to the story piece. So the first one, don't tell stories about yourself. Like he also says like there's also this notion of like things will work out, sort of if you have that underlying sort of belief like
Mm-hmm.
that things like if you sort of do your best and sort of act in good faith that people are generally good and things will work out. So that's something he pushes, like that's honestly one of the points I struggle with for me more so than almost anything else is like just the belief that things will work out, things have a way of working out and life isn't
Mm.
just random. But
So Matt just closed his eyes as he was listening to you. And so what's your interpretation of that? Does it make you feel like unhappy?
Are you talking to me or Mike?
Mike,
Yes, yes. No, Matt
did
is
you did you see Matt close his eyes, rolling his eyes?
perhaps he's trying to be mindful, perhaps I'm boring him. I'm not gonna judge. So
Okay. Wow, you have arrived. You achieved next day already.
yeah, that's right. So yes. So just yeah, so anyway, don't like the first part is don't tell stories,
Hmm.
things will work out, be non-judgmental.
Okay.
Like second one is go with the flow of life, is
Hmm.
sort of arrange your life such that it's meaningful, like, like things feel meaningful and good to you. Things don't encourage you to have those voices. And
Okay.
then three is basically and this I think is maybe a key point that I've found for being mindful is basically and it's very related to only celebrating achievement. So basically he says we get our new toys, we achieve something, and then we immediately are on to the next thing.
Hmm.
So like we're always being bombarded with what we want, like what we want to do next, like what others have, and will be miserable if focused on that. So he encourages like and again, this is I think a big part of sort of meditation yoga is like focusing, like making everything new. So even if it's an experience you've had like many, many times, like if it's a ride, if it's a certain workout you do, like take the time and be mindful and take note of what's going on around you that you can like sort of latch on to and is new, because because any experience, even if it's something you've done for the millionth time, can be essentially experience one if you sort of take note of what's different in this moment.
Mm.
So he said that that is like a key thing to sort of getting into that mindfulness state. So I
Sounds
thought
good.
that that was good. So,
Okay. So,
uh,
okay. So I got a few questions.
mhm.
Um, I would say the first comment I want to make is, yeah. So I think a lot of things I learned is like sometimes it's like and it's important in life is like the knowing what you want actually, and it's really hard to do. Like a lot of times we know we want something, but a lot of time maybe it's not what you really want. So that's why when you achieve it, it's not really true happy. It doesn't sustain, right? Because it's not really what you want. And because a lot of times it's like society make you want this, right? You want to save the world, you want to be, join Peace Corps or something. But when you achieve it, you want to be, or else I don't know, do something that's like noble or something that you think that you should do, but actually, when you achieve it, it's not something that you want. Yeah,
Hmm.
you. So, and most important thing I think that's very individual. Like you just figure out what you sit down and figure out really what you really want, I guess. Which is kind of part of my problem because I'm still figuring it out. I still don't know what I really want. Even like even if happiness is happiness what you want in life, right? Is this then if you we almost like just actually the premises of this what you isn't how conversation right now is that we having the assumption that happiness is what we want, right? We never question, oh, is happy what we want? We just
Sure.
right? We didn't really question that, which is fine, That maybe we should want happiness, right? But I'm just saying that let's just bring out my point that when we say, oh, yeah, so I just start a question that is happiness what we really want, right? So
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
another a question. Maybe we should start at the beginning. Like, okay, maybe Buddha say life is suffering. Maybe suffering is not what we really want, because I don't know, right? And yeah, so I'll say another point is that another question actually is the state, the whole podcast of the hypothesis. As you say, it's hypothesis, right? Is
Hmm.
the state of mindfulness is
Hmm.
equal, almost like equivalent of happiness, right? Is that really true, right? But I think it's a good measurement. I think is sounds correct to me, right? So I think I'm not sure we need to debate that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I
Yeah.
mean, I can
Matt, what do you
certainly
think?
understand. Yeah, man.
I I think it is pretty much agree. I feel like mindfulness kind of leads you to a form of happiness, right? Like this idea of the like at peace monk is a form of happiness. And I feel like it is a different form than compared to like you get the thing you want, the shiny toy, which is I do think that is like a happiness in a sense, even if it's fleeting. Um, they're just kind of like two different forms of happiness. That's my opinion.
Yeah,
Mm,
well, I mean, I would say like when you sort of win the competition, like, when you're on the podium or whatever, like I feel like there's a lot of things factoring in there. There's pride, there's sort of like, I mean, obviously, like the brain has, essentially infinitely many states. So it's sort of like I could see like a lot of, what we call sort of pride and achievement or whatever other emotion you want to use there, like is factoring in as well.
mm.
So
Oh,
yeah.
sounds good. I'll say so. Yeah, if people want to get into mindfulness, if you want to get into mindfulness, actually, that's one very very small, easy to read book called Mindfulness.
Hmm.
And it's by Thich Nhat Hanh. He passed away a few years ago, I think. And I read his book. It's a very good book. And there's a story in there. He talk about washing dishes, right? Is a good example, right? A lot of time basically how you can practice mindfulness every day, basically on your daily life. Well, one example in the book he gave is called washing dishes. If you're washing dishes, a lot of times we are not actually paying attention to it, right? Most of the time we either listen to a podcast, doing something, like thinking of something to do later, right? But you are not paying attention as you're washing your dishes, right? And you kind of miss the moment of washing your dishes, right? That's things as you're washing the dishes, basically his point. Because his point is that if you not paying attention while you're washing dishes, that means when you sit down later to maybe enjoy a meal, right? Enjoying a cup of tea, you actually not you get in a habit of thinking about something else. Like when you as you're eating, like maybe this food is really good, but you're not tasting all the flavors because you are thinking about something else. You are distracted. You're not paying attention to that moment, right? Eating the
Hmm.
food, um, drinking the tea. or sometimes maybe spending time with your family members and stuff like that, right?
Hmm.
And so yeah, it's an easy book. It's really quick read. You probably can read it in a couple hours actually. So
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what?
yeah.
The example that comes to my mind of like the biggest difference and maybe like a subset of mindfulness of like really being in the moment is like, like the difference when you watch a show and like you can watch a show that you don't know anything about and you just get really into it and enjoy it, even if it's like at a critical evaluation, it's only so-so.
Hmm.
Or there's like if you come in with like expectations because you heard it was really good, or maybe just something early on sort of like takes you out of it. You're like, oh, that
Yeah.
annoys me that they did this. And then you're kind of thinking about the show instead of
Uh-huh.
just like absorbed in it. And sort of sometimes like either because of what you saw before you started it or what happened early on, you sort of end in these two paths of whether you're thinking about it or you're absorbed in it.
Hmm.
And like that can really change how much you enjoy the show.
Yeah.
So at least that is the example that comes to my mind for like the biggest like, oh yeah, this is like a difference I know where like I'll sometimes do things where I try to avoid like overthinking and something like that. And I'm just like, I just want to, because I'll just enjoy it more if I can just become absorbed in it and not, worry about it, right? You don't want, it's kind of like you don't want spoilers, but you also don't want to come in with expectations or other things. It's better just to like, you know,
Hmm.
watch it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a very good example, actually. Modern day example, more relatable to everybody.
That's right. No,
No
I
one,
mean,
no one, yeah, sorry,
oh
go.
no, you go ahead, Matt. No.
I was just gonna say it's no one's that concerned about being mindful over dishes. It's a good
Mhm.
exercise, right? But like you're not
Yeah.
gonna enjoy dishes, but this can like really impact how much you enjoy stuff like that.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, no, I mean, I honestly, so when I asked the initial question of like something, like sort of a prototypical display of happiness, one of the things that I thought about was like when I used to take my dogs for a walk. Or
Mm.
like my dog for a walk, like because it was like literally the same path we walked every single day, but it was like he was equally excited every day to go out.
Mm.
And so I guess that was one thing where I'm like, like I wish I could be like that excited about like driving to, like driving a CrossFit or like, I mean, it's just such a simple thing, but it was like, it's like when an animal can be like fully immersed in the moment, which
Mm.
I guess can be good and bad. So, but but I guess something as simple as a walk and they get all excited. So, I
Got you.
actually, yeah. So,
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like naturally, I think everybody, like human, natural state when you're born is kind of happy state, right? Like babies, and then when it's grow up, kids too.
mhm.
But as you grow up, I think the human condition on a everyday life kind of take you away from that, adding more stuff to you. I don't know. So.
Sure, sure. Yeah. I mean, I actually looked up like I guess it's interesting. There's actually been a decent amount of research on this, but I was looking up like do animals commit suicide? Like, and and in all
I think they
honesty,
do.
it's still like an active debate, like there, because like obviously like suicide, or we generally think about it as like taking your life because you're like overwhelmed by life and like like you're very aware like of your who you are and the act you're doing is going to end your life, like so it's not like oh I'm in like an immense amount of grief and or I'm sacrificing myself for someone or anything like that. It's it's a very intentional act, and it's hard for the like scientists, I guess, to attribute that to animals. So
Mm.
I mean, there's been like instances of like dogs, like when their owners die, like they just lay at their graves till they starve to death and stuff like that. But even in those particular
Mm.
cases, they're like, is that just essentially grief, like
Hmm.
grief causing the animal to act like in a way that's detrimental to its health, as opposed to like the animal actively being like, I'm gonna not eat and die. So,
Yeah.
but so in any case, like it's just like animals seem to be better about like animals will act self-destructively, but it's when there's like an acutely bad thing happening to them at the time.
Mm.
It seems like. Whereas humans, like, sometimes can be like, even if things are good overall and there's not like any acutely bad thing, we can sort of tell those stories and like not like we can, as you say, we're washing the dishes and we're thinking about a trip 2 months from now or whatever, as opposed to just being in the moment, because that's 2 months later.
Mm.
So,
Is
Oh,
so,
that to take it on a very different direction? Is that
uh,
some of our secret of success though? We're never happy. We're always trying to do more.
yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
is that because I don't think this is really a problem for most. Like, I don't think most people are going to become so mindful that they don't care. Like, they're just happy, content with life, and they don't try to do anything anymore.
uh,
But like, imagine if that did happen, right? Imagine if 200, 300 years ago, we just achieved monk-like satisfaction around the world, right? There'd be a lot more people who like starve to death and die of diseases than there are today, if people didn't try to achieve all the things that humans have achieved. So,
Right. No, I do think it's a balance. I mean, obviously, like, and I mean, I guess that balance is driven by sort of the harshness of the world, right? Like, I mean, because like in the case of animals, it's like, yeah, like, when they lose a partner, or when they're sick or hurt, like, obviously they're not happy. They're whining and crying and showing like, I mean, if you anthropomorphize them, like, they're showing very typical human negative emotions, but like in the moments they're not experiencing those, they tend to be happy, which, and that is great. But you're right. Like, I think our sort of short term, like, our ability to sort of perspective take and understand sort of the mind state of the like another who's suffering, as well as sort of like remember and act on sort of our own suffering, is probably like more advanced than most animals, and that leads to
Mm.
technology. So.
Mm. Yeah, but I do agree with the Matt's point of like, that's kind of secret to success in a way, right? But it's hard to how do you balance like, like ambition with contentment, right? So that's something that I kind of ask myself, or still keep asking myself in a way, right? It's like one is like how, and then that's why I think part of it is like what's your definition of success, right?
Mhm.
And and then yeah, and then that's why actually one of the reason like even like doing this podcast, I said okay, what's the success, right? Like success, like just trying it, learning, right? Instead of like okay, instead of amassing a big uh big audience, right? To me, it's more like just learning, like just keep me in the pace of just keep learning. That is
Mhm.
what my definition of success. That we consistently doing this and then getting better. That's my definition of success. So, um, because if we define like define okay the size of audience, right, likes and stuff like that, right? It's not uh that if you seen it every day, it's just gonna very externally. You're gonna just beat yourself up, right? Almost every day, right? You're gonna lose energy of doing it, right? So and one thing I forgot to mention, I think one thing I did hear a quote from somewhere a while ago is that like happiness is a decision, right? I
Mhm.
find that a little bit useful. It's hard to do too, but like most quotes, but I think it's a little bit. It's a pretty good uh framework as well.
it's a reminder that a lot of happiness is, your perspective, your
Yeah.
internal
Hmm.
state, not just the things that happen to you, which
Yeah.
is what we've been talking about. But yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
I like that quote. I
Mhm.
think it's like a nice, quick way to sort of
Yeah.
give the taste of what Michael's podcast tells us.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So, is there any other questions or thoughts?
No, I think last question is what Matt asked me last time too. Like, what did you learn from? I'm just copying Matt's question last time for me. Like, did you anything change for you after listening to this podcast? Like, or just stuff like that. Like, anything you learn or anything you change yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this has driven me to do more yoga. Just like
Mm,
I've
yeah.
been trying to be at yoga at least a couple of times a week. And
Mm,
I do like I've been a medical like a person who engages in metacognition a fair bit, but I guess I've tried to be like much more purposeful with like if I start to spiral down like you need to get this done, you need to get that, like I try to be much more, I don't know what the word I want to use here is, but like I try to be faster about like cutting off those trains of thought just to like and being like, all right, like let's tackle this one thing. Like, you need to get this done, so let's get this done and just like essentially table the rest of the stuff for later. So, yeah, I guess those are the two probably biggest things is I've tried to do yoga more to be better about sort of practicing sort of, washing dishes and not thinking about 2 months from now.
Yeah,
And
sure.
yeah, and to engage in healthier metacognition. So,
Nice.
so
Cool.
yeah.
All right. Anything else?
No, I mean, do we wanna say what the next topic might like? Do you want to do the next one, Matt? Or
All right, the next topic, we're going to review the exciting new stuff in green technology. I was looking through our Junto Cub list and I couldn't see us if we had ever like done a mini topic on this before or anything like that. I'll look some more just to make sure, but either case, it's at least been a while. So we'll talk about some cool stuff and the physics behind it. Get a little sciencey for once because it's been a while.
All right. Sounds good. Looking forward to that. Actually, no, I don't look forward to it because I don't really care about climate change.
Oh, I thought you were just gonna say you're not gonna judge. The podcast is what it will be. But
yeah,
this is just hate now. Come
so
on.
Yes. All right. Actually, I'm gonna add something new to this format. Actually, I'm gonna add a outro quote. Right. So you start with the quote and end with the quote.
oh boy,
And then
okay.
today's quote actually just reminded me of is um well actually we discussed this earlier already, which is it's not impermanence, the very fragrance of our days by Rainer Maria Rilke. That's it.
Are we supposed to discuss it or is that just the end?
No, just in the end.
Okay,
It's for people to think about it, like,
I
yeah.
see. All right, see you next
Anyway.
time.